that's a little bit of history. So, tonight really I wanted to talk to you a lot about the economics, and that's not how much does it cost to breed. You've all seen your vet's bills, you know how much it costs to breed. They're very reasonable, I understand. Do myself out of that one quickly. Okay. Briefly mention Stallion that we're looking after, because he actually is the classic example of this. Vladimir de Lalonde, it's the son of my Lord Carthago. Michael Whitaker bought the back end of last year for an obscene amount of money. You can buy a good sized farm in this country for that. And he was 6 years old. And we sat watching the negotiations going on, and it was extraordinary, just extraordinary. And that is where the market is now. So look, we're going to go and breed these lovely foals. They're all fantastic, they're all wonderful, we're all barn blind, they're all the greatest things in the world. But where's the economic in any of this? If you're doing it for the fun, if you're doing it for enjoyment, if you're doing it to have a foal where you can stand, lean against the gate, dribbling, and I know you've all done that, always be beautiful, it's absolutely fantastic, and yes, they are of course lovely. If that's your thing, they're fantastic. You'll learn something now, which is vaguely interesting, but if you're somebody that is breeding actually to ultimately make money, or to be making horses, that in the end 5 or 6 or 7 year olds will making money for you, then this should be fairly interesting. From 2008, we all involved ourselves, not in the horse world, in the big economic crisis. It all went pretty nasty. And actually, oddly, in the horse world, it had a slightly ratchet effect. It didn't affect us all immediately, because we're all just a bit crazy, aren't we? So, oh, it's not affecting us, that's fine. We don't need to eat, keep feeding the horses, that's fantastic. And what actually has happened in the last 7, now 8 years, particularly in mainland Europe, is that the number of mares that are being bred has halved. Speak to the Holsteiners, speak to the KWPN, they will tell you that over that period it has halved. It's been an extraordinary thing. Now, you don't need a doctorate in economics to work out that when production, and I will use some terms tonight that you won't like a foal is a product, okay? Production, not breeding. Okay, I'm afraid those are just industrial terms, but they need to be spoken in those in these ways to perhaps get you to think in a slightly different way about what it is that you're doing. The production, it hasn't just gone and it will come back. When you own a factory which makes red widgets, and people no longer want red widgets, they want pink widgets, you have to close down those machines and lay people off. Until such time as people decide either they're going to start buying your product again, or you just got to go and make another product. Well, we can't go and make a different product in the case of horses. So eventually, perhaps the market will come back, and you'll put those machines back into production, and you'll rehire those people. But you've never actually lost the capacity; it was always there. What has happened in horse breeding is the capacity has been lost. The mares are gone, the breeders have stopped because they're 70, 80-year-old breeders in North Holstein, up in North KWPN land, Holland, and so on. And they've just stopped breeding. They've said, I'm too old to breed, I can't do this anymore, and my children are in Hamburg or Berlin or wherever, working on IT and graphic design. No interest in taking the horrible muddy farm and walking around in boots all day long. The production's, literally, the capacity is gone. Bits of it might come back. Maybe we'll get back to 60-65% of 2007's production, but it's going to take some time. Okay, so as I said, we don't need doctorates in economics. That will immediately have an effect on price. Then what else has happened? Now this is the point at which some of you may have heard of him. I'd be amazed if you haven't. We actually all should now, if I put his photo up there, bend down and pay homage to Jan Tops, because what Jan has done with the Global Champions Tour and everything else that he's involved himself in business, is he has made our sport, in the case of jumping, and he's in the process of doing other things as well in the other sports, the sexiest sport, not horse sport, the sexiest sport in the world right now. Absolutely, I mean, he has made it the most glamorous. Young ladies in their beautiful breeches with their their Diamants on, and the €1,500 boots from the guys in Italy, and all this sort of thing, and STX with their €500,000 box and all this one. But Jan, he's opened China, he's opened India. Well, those two countries alone represent 1/3 of the world population. I'm not suggesting that 2 billion people are going to suddenly want to come and buy a horse, but when people become rich, one of the ways in which they like to express their wealth or show off their wealth is to own horses. Now, as we know, horses are for those who were once rich and wish to become poor. Okay, I'll chip it over. You guys knock it in. If you want to make a million in horses.
Start out as a billion.
There you go. That's there you are. So we want to. That's largely speaking a reality. But in 2 weekends' time, there are going to be people in their bikinis on Miami Beach watching show jumping, same as last year. When it'll be burned to hell, actually, you could watch it happen as the hour went by. But yeah, there it is. He has glammed our sport up. The money pouring in. There are people talking at the moment, people that we should always listen to, and forget if it's just England and just Ireland, because people sort of cross their eyes and go, that can't possibly be true. Globally, it is believed at the moment there is more money going into sport horses than into race horses. It's quite, you couldn't imagine that. Now in England, that's absolutely not the case. In Ireland, it's absolutely not the case. But globally, it is. There's more money per day going into these sports than into racing. I could never have thought that. Whether it's an actual fact or not, we will find out. But what I do know is the money coming in and buying horses right now, it is just extraordinary. So the point about India and China is it wasn't just India and China. There are other countries that are being opened up, and more people are becoming more and more interested in horse sport. And it's about 2 to 3 years after the financial crisis, and as the number of breedings or the number of mares covered started to go down, it was noted by the FEI that the number of people competing in 2-star or above international show jumping competitions had more than doubled. It was strange, we're all getting poor. Well, no, actually, the rich just got richer, as we know from read the Daily Mail every day. And that's the reality. So people were pouring into the sport. Okay. Lecture 2 of London School of Economics, Economic Theory. Okay, production has halved. Number of people in that end of the sport has doubled. Okay, now there's a reality that in excess of 6 or 7 times more people have poured into the sport during the rest of the period since the economic crisis. Okay, so let's just say it's 5 times more people now want to buy a show jumper or a dressage horse, whilst the production has halved. So, this is why, call Enda Carroll, I have his number, call Enda Carroll and ask him, this is one of the biggest traders in Europe, call Enda and say to him, Enda, I'm looking for a 6-year-old, top 6-year-old, that I can take to Lanarkon in September, I'll get placed. He'll tell you 2 things. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find that for you. And number 2, minimum price, $500,000. Now, I can't tell you what Michael paid for Valmy de Lalonde, it would be not the correct thing to do. I've turned down recently just over €200,000 for a 5-year-old by Katoki that I own. He's in the catalogue. And because I believe that another year will put that horse in excess of €500,000. So there start to be some very good economic reasons for breeding, and breeding very, very well. However, there's a massive disconnect between the breeders. It almost doesn't matter which country, although the bigger breeding countries, they do tend to be less disconnected. There's a massive disconnect, particularly in the Anglo-Saxon world, between the breeders and the ring. Right. I genuinely want you to put your hands up here, please. Who was the last person in here who actually dared to walk into a Grand Prix class and walk the course? I know you would. Right. Okay. One person who is in the top end of the game, and none of you have. Have any of you gone into one of these Oxfords and done that? Now I'm a big bloke, so I can. How many of you actually gone and stood inside one of these oxers and tried to touch the poles?
Yeah, I'm not even 5 foot tall, so my friends all send me in to do it.
Okay, there you are.
I've got loads of photos doing that.
Okay, but my point being that, and actually Jerry Mullins, Captain Jerry Mullins, from Irish Army, he said this at a meeting I was at a few years ago. So almost an epiphany for me. He said, right, when was the last time you did that? So all of you here, please will you go to your next Grand Prix, even if it's just a metre 50, just go into the ring and go and stand inside that fence. And now imagine your broodmare jumping that fence. And if you can't, don't breed from her. A stallion owner, yes, did just tell you not to breed. Imagine your mare jumping that fence. If you can't, think hard about breeding from her. Think hard. There's only so much Canan can do, okay? There's only so much he can do. Or DM on, or cornered, etc., etc., etc. Yes, you will get the odd fluke. But I'm afraid, my Anglo-Saxon friends, this old Anglo-Saxon thing about they're all freaks, the good ones are freaks, absolute rubbish. That's why the Belgians and the Dutch and the Germans and the French are all supplying us with horses. Because they are, aren't they? No matter how much we breed, they're still over there buying those horses and bringing them back in. There is a science to it, there's without question an art to it, but I'm afraid the old thing about, oh, the good ones, they're all freaks, that's rubbish. It's been
But
rubbish
then
for 30
I
years.
buy from this country even with top lines. I've got top lines and they don't even look at me.
I'm going to talk about that in a second. Well,
Well, I believe they're top lines.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, and I'm sure they are, but we'll talk about that in a second. So yeah, please, the disconnect between breeding a foal and these big Grand Prix, you have to disconnect the disconnect. Is that in English? You must please go and do it, even if it's just a metre 40 class. Go in there and stand in that. I mean, it's all very nice to go to the Derby and stand on top of the bank and all, isn't that amazing? Very few horses actually ever go and do that. It's the other stuff. You've got to go and see what it's about and try to imagine, try and link into, clue into what you're trying to create biomechanically. My girlfriend, she's the house rider for the Stallion Company, but she's a young horse producer, uniquely a young horse producer, and I bought her a couple of horses over the last year or so, Canturado and Cello 3. I didn't really buy them as stallions, they had to be stallions. I don't buy geldings myself. I see no point in them, but that's I'm not the gelding company. She suddenly discovered when she started jumping around the metre 45 classes that they became different horses. I was like, yeah, that's because biomechanically, genetically, physiologically, thanks. Those are the big words. That's what actually they were designed to do. They're not freaks. They're designed to do that. They're bred with the intent of that happening. That you chose not to jump in metre 35, metre 40 classes, that's down to you. Now you're in metre 45, now heading to metre 50s over the next few weeks. If you do that, I'll buy you a table at the CGT and we'll go down and run around in the 2 stars. And then you can see what it's all about. But suddenly these horses started jumping in a very, very different way. They started jumping better. It's what they're designed to do. So, there we are. Back to my notes. So the economic argument for breeding, I mean, actually, on the one hand, I'm saying to people, look, if your mare's not that great, don't breed from her. By the same token, do breed. Breed well. Breed better. Breed from the good stallions. Breed from the good mares. But then, there's the next part. What's your plan? What's your plan? You've got your lovely foal. He's all nice. He's at Emily's place out the back and trotting around, and that all lovely. But what's your plan? You know, really, Madam the Yellow, what's your plan for your foal this year?
Not yet.
Okay,
But,
that's coming.
Coming.
But you've got a plan, right?
Would like to think that we'll put her in a rider when she's 3.
Okay. Yeah. And?
See how she goes.
Okay. And?
She'll be in a bangles eventually.
Okay.
We'll see.
So you're linked to a rider? A rider that can produce well?
A number, yeah.
Brilliant. Okay. You have a plan.
Yeah.
I'm afraid too many people in Britain will actually breed quite well, but won't have a plan. Have you actually, okay. don't know if any of you have read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. It's the vital tome if you want to make a lot of money. And in it says, think about the things that you do that you buy in a year that you research a lot, and then think about the things you go and invest in you do no researching whatsoever. And he's particularly talking about going and investing in particularly shares in any one company, and you've done no research, and you say it's lost half its market share overnight, and you've got your hand on your back. So I'm thinking, I've just done half my retirement fund. I'd ask you to do the same thing about your breeding. What really is your plan? If it's just to put a foal on the ground, and we've got lots of fields full of those in Britain, that's for sure. Lots and lots of fields. But by the way, it's not to say that doesn't happen in Europe. There are people who get it quite wrong in Europe as well. It's not the epitome of breeding. It's not always fantastic and wonderful. People do sometimes get it wrong. But if you're going to breed this foal, okay, there are some people who will try to sell the foal, and they might make some money. I would suggest it's normally going to be mares that are well bred from the top stallions. You try and sell a Cornwall Walensky, that's easily done. It's by corner, fine, I'll buy it. And you'll make a profit from it, no doubt. If you manage to get one of the good straws, and that's €750, and that mare's pregnant, and the foal arrives next year, you'll almost certainly be making money. But after that, if you're not somebody who sells foals, are you somebody who sells 3-year-olds? Now, Nina Barber set up a really fantastic thing the other night, and nobody turned up to the free jumping clinic. No one turned up.
It's the wrong time of the year for 3-year-olds to be loose jumping.
If you're English, yes.
Yes.
If you're European, now is when you're doing it. And now is when you're selling your 3-year-olds and making a profit, if that's what you want to be doing. And I thought it was really hot. I was on the phone to Sue Jagger from Millfield all the way up here. I don't know if any of you know Millfield's done. But Sue would be one of the more successful breeders in this country. She based everything on Holsteiner mother lines, and then she's adding to it with either Holsteiners or other very, very good stallions. And actually, it was her horse that won. There was no one there to watch. The competitors were there. That was all very nice. But no one was there to watch because there's no culture in this country of loose jumping. I don't get it. It's like, how do you teach your horse to jump? If the first time it jumps is when it's 4 years old with you on its back, it's not you personally, but with someone on its back, I wouldn't want to be doing that. That's, you need a chiropractor.
To be fair, it wasn't very well publicised about it. There was no advertising.
I understand that, but it's we could discuss marketing and publicity another time. But I just thought it was a real shame that somebody puts on a clinic.
You can't suddenly 6 weeks ago decide we're going to do this, and then expect people to turn up. I
understand.
But I would suggest stick with it and run again next year.
But I would suggest that if that was done in one of the main breeding countries, it would have been rammed. We know. You go to the Trakehner Stallion show up in the Holsteinhalle in Neumünster, there's 6,000 people to watch it. You're lucky to get 300 or 400 to the UK Stallion show,
But then she also went a little bit wrong with it, because she was advertising it as for the British breeders, and the majority of the horses there were imports. So how can it be so a lot of the British breeders went,
right,
that's the reason why I didn't go, I just want to carry on.
But my point is, it ultimately is a very interesting subject, free jumping, and it's something that we're not doing enough of. The result being that we've got our 3-year-olds. Where's the value? Where's the value? Has there got any more value than the foal? Fundamentally, it's a lump of meat, bone, and a bit of paper. Sorry to be so brutal about it, but that is what it is. And if the people you're trying to sell to don't appreciate that it's by Cornwall Walensky out of Casal's full sister, if anyone has Casal's full sister, let me know. But I'll buy it off you. But if they don't appreciate that's what it is, I'm afraid your 3-year-old has no value. Until we build that culture, we're not going to change that culture tonight here. That's very, very sure. My point is about the plan. A breeder and inseminator down on the south coast near Southampton. April last year, took a 5-year-old, very nicely schooled 5-year-old, that never competed, down to the Sunshine Tour. Did its first class, very good. Second class, very good. Sold before the third class for €100,000. Off video. So are you attached to a good rider, a genuinely good rider, somebody that genuinely produces young horses. Not people who only produce young horses because actually they haven't got the money to go and buy the big horses, and so actually they're just stuck in young horses and rattle them around and smash them through, classes against 12-year-old horses who are there just to win their diesel money back. Are you attached to, whether it's eventing, dressage or jumping, it doesn't matter, are you attached to a good rider that can genuinely produce that horse, or are you that person yourself? Who knows? The point being that, as we travel through our almost valueless foal, through our almost even less value yearling, because they're just horrible to look at, I'm always very suspicious about yearlings that look nice. It's like, hang on, when are you going to look horrible? Come on, at some point you're going to do that. You can't be Johnny Wilkinson from the start and all the way through. There's going to be a point where it's just not going to work for you. And then we've gone to our questionable value of 2-year-old, which of course in Germany would be up for licensing if it was really good, at which point we're adding value to it. And then the bit more value for the 3-year-old, because you fed it for 3 years, so there must be some value attached to it. And then it's broken, double the value now because it's been broken and started, and there you are. But the rewards are genuinely there for you. And with the economics, the real economics that perhaps as horse people we don't think about, that are going on in what we think is not a very real world, but it is a very, very real world. There are people in this country who pay very big money over there for horses, Michael Whitaker being one of them. There isn't a Valmy de Lalonde that's been bred in this country? It probably has been, it just hasn't been produced, so that when Michael sits on him and says, this is the best horse I ever sat on, or the best young horse I ever sat on, he was mumbling at the time, so I didn't fully hear what he said, but it was definitely, this is the best something horse I've ever sat on. Actually, might have been a swear word. Anyway, so it may well be that horse has been bred because, as you say, madam, you may well have stunning mares and you use super duper stallions that correspond very well with them, and these things are going to end up jumping the moon. But until you've produced that horse to that point where the professional rider can come along and go, yeah, actually, I've actually got to buy that. I mean, don't get me wrong, Michael did negotiate hard, but he still paid an extraordinary amount of money for this horse. I mean, they wanted even more. But to get the riders so excited about your horse that, as other friends of mine in the business say, is it a horse you can live without? Or is it a horse you can't live without? And in the case of Valmy, it was a horse that Michael could not live without. I mean, he's at my place at the moment, I understand entirely why. So, as I said, with the economic arguments in the background, which are actually, for me, are in my foreground, and I want them for you to become very, very real, that these numbers are being paid for these horses, and they're not the exception. They're not the exception. $500,000 being paid for a horse is a daily event in Europe. Daily event. And beyond, we just finished with the transfer window on the 15th of January for the Olympics, and there was some extraordinary amounts. I mean, okay, that's since the 10 and 11 and 12-year-old horses and what have you. My point to you is, if I can find a way of motivating you to, by giving you fact and reality, to actually produce your horses correctly as 4 and 5-year-olds, then into 6-year-olds, very, very important year in the education of a horse, wind back 1 year to 5-year-olds, I wouldn't say that €100,000 would be a life-changing amount of money, but it would enough motivate you as far as your breeding is concerned, and you go and buy another couple of really good mares, and use perhaps better quality stallions or what have you. But I'm hoping that I'm giving you some quite good motivational reasons for going and breeding better and using the better stallions and using the better mares, but then producing them during those early stages, 3, 4 and 5-year-olds. Because one of the things that we saw, and Derek, I'm sure you'll agree with me, during this financial crisis, everyone was like, I ain't buying foals. Actually, I'm not even buying 3-year-olds. 4-year-olds, see you next year. 5-year-olds. We were the first into Fontainebleau this year. We had five horses qualified for Fontainebleau. For some reason we arrived a day early. We got the first slot where the lorries went in. We set up camp and there we are. We had a bunch of 4-year-olds. A couple of which we wanted to sell. One was a mare, one was a gelding. Well, we're not the little girl company, we're not the gelding company. We sat for those whole 10 days. Horses did really, really well. One of them went in 4th highest ranked in the country, another went in 8th highest ranked in the country on winnings. And not a tickle Not a tickle. And yet we were actually where all the betting was taking place. And the vets, there were 4 vets on turnaround. From 6 in the morning until 8 at night. Betting, 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 betting. And all we could hear was everything beginning with A, which was the year before, the 5-year-olds. And we were like, man alive, what's going on? And we very quickly realised that there was just no business with the 4-year-olds either. It's not to say you can't sell 4-year-olds, of course you can. The real business is in the 5-year-olds. And that's very much, would you agree with that, David? That crisis arrived, people wanted immediate gratification. They were no longer interested in waiting 4 years, 5 years. They wanted that horse there and then, and if it's well produced and correctly produced, and it's got some good results under its belt, boom. And these horses, some of these horses are actually being bought on video, off video. I mean, just FYI, if you can, sorry to use the abbreviation on that, for your information, if you can, take yourself up, get into the technology, get videos of your horses. Actually, people come to me so many times, oh, I've got a really interesting mare, I've got a really interesting horse, perhaps you're interested in it. Got a video? No? Okay, thanks for the call. When you take the video, give me a call. Yeah, as I said, the 5-year-olds seem to be at the moment, it may change, the price of 5-year-olds will become so high, people will have to move back to 4-year-olds. And the price of 4-year-olds, it cycles, it's the way the world works in these cycles. No one cycle is ever the same, but the world works like that. So, yeah, think about your plan. Think about where. There's a lovely foal. It's all absolutely beautiful. But what is your plan for it? Have you got a continuum that's going to take it through to 5 years old? At which point you can sell it. Now, I mean, I could be talking to a whole load of people here that have no intention of ever selling their horses. You're breeding to take them right the way through to win the gold medal at the Olympics. Or does anyone here breed commercially?
Would like to.
Derek obviously does.
You'd like to.
You'd like to. You'd like to.
No, I used to.
I used to, right. By the way, just a question. I'm going to point at people. I'm going to ask you the question, why do you breed then? Why do you breed?
And to produce and to ride.
For yourself?
For myself.
Okay,
yeah.
gotcha. In what sport?
Children thing.
Gotcha,
well,
gotcha.
if they don't turn out to be that great, then eventing maybe.
Gotcha. Madam next to you, you're trying hard to ignore me. If I don't look at him, he goes, say again?
You're asking why?
What? Yeah, why do you breed?
Because I'd like to produce something that is worthy and goes on to
In which sport?
eventing.
Eventing, okay. Gotcha. Worthy of?
Probably better than the mare was.
Okay.
And getting the joy out of watching that horse progress.
Okay, gotcha. But if someone came along and said, well, you're a 6-year-old eventer, I think I can sell it to Lilian d'Angers, and I'm going to give you 40, 50, 60, 70,000 for it, because I'm afraid eventers are a little bit less expensive than the show jumpers. There isn't a big economic.
5-year-olds, yeah.
Yeah, and someone offers you enough money, you'd sell, right?
Probably, yeah.
There you go. Yeah. This is the reality. Tomorrow morning.
Depends what, yeah.
Tomorrow morning, everything can change for us. We can break a leg. We can break a leg. Our daughter or son that we're breeding for can break a leg. The daughter might find men.
Yeah.
The son might find men. It's or women. It has been known. So anything can change tomorrow morning. What I would always suggest is that you've got something sitting in the field or in the box that has a value that in the event that you unfortunately need to sell, if it wasn't the original intention, actually it has some value to it that people can go, they look in the back of Horse and Hound or wherever and go, oh, actually that's a very, very interesting horse, I can go and buy it. So, back to my notes. Does anyone have anything to ask or say about my economic arguments so far? I mean, please, there's almost no question I won't answer. Which means there are one or two I won't. Yeah.
If you've got to send it to be produced,
Yep.
the cost of that production
Yep.
could be prohibitive.
Could it?
Well, yeah, because you've got to find it up front. You've got to find that for 2-3 years.
Yep. What's the cost per year?
It depends how much they cost. I mean, probably 150 quid a week, plus travel,
Okay.
plus shoeing, plus vets, plus everything else.
Yeah.
And then it might not make the grade at the end of it.
Yeah. My outfit cost me Each of the last 3 weeks, my outfit has cost me €30,000 a week to run. But I'm still forging ahead, making damn sure those young horses, when they come to be sold, are correctly produced. And there you are. We can put a lot of negative economic arguments forward, like the cost. If that's the case,
Why am I doing it?
go and buy a 3-year-old. Go and buy a really super 3-year-old that you've seen at a loose jumping competition,
Yeah.
and you've advanced your aims by 4 years.
I've got 3-year-olds in the field now, and 4-year-olds.
There you are.
Great.
There you are. But they've now got to be produced and turned into something of value. Otherwise, it is just muscle and a passport.
But finding the people to produce them is not easy either. You either get the one that thrashes it to death, and then, you know, or you get the one that's scared to get on it. And
Derek knows lots of producers.
And also, morally, I cannot accept being produced for sale, not to the horse's benefit. Because like, once I'm breeding, they're not going to jump till they're 145, 150 jumps.
Right.
And I don't believe with them being thrashed around
Oh, no, I don't believe that at all.
as 4-year-olds, just to be sold.
No, I mean, in France we're very lucky actually, because we are very restricted in what we can do with the horses. We have a system, which if one day I could convince the BS,
Good luck.
to perhaps change how they do things. So we haven't got 4-year-olds running around against 12-year-old pot hunters who are there for the diesel money, so they can be, time can be taken over them, time can be taken to produce them correctly.
That's a different argument.
But in France, we restrict our 4-year-olds can only jump 10 times, 10 single rounds in a year, including 2 at the finals and 1 at the interregionals. So they're going to do 7 rounds prior to the end of July.
But for me, well, most professional people with 4-year-olds, we aim for 1 month of the year, August.
Yeah.
Because that's when all the championships.
Absolutely, yeah.
I'm only just breaking my 4-year-olds now. Now I've already seen 4-year-olds jumping Discovery and things like that.
Yeah.
And the only people who inquire about 4-year-olds are amateurs, because amateurs want to ride, and they're not being amateurs, they want to ride at a 4-year-old at a 4-year-old class.
Yeah.
So they think, right, we'll buy one early on, but by the time they get to the August championships, they are burnt out.
Yeah.
So line normal, the sort of professional people, we aim for the 1 month of the year. And that's when then the value becomes on a 5-year-old. So for us, 4-year-olds have no value.
Right, yeah.
Unless they are the special ones. And the only ones that I will take to them are the ones that I genuinely think are, the ones that aren't going to go to the championships, they go down the road somewhere.
Sure. I mean, that's also not to say that every 4-year-old is going to be an amazing 4-year-old.
Yep.
An ordinary 4-year-old can actually be, we have 2. Midway through the season, we said, we'll see you next year, mate.
I had an owner last year in February, I'm saying that, she sat me down and she said, you're not doing your job properly with my 4-year-old. I'm like, what do you mean? She says, well, there's 4-year-olds for sale that have jumped to British Novice and Discovery double clears. This one can barely canter. I think we only need it for August.
No, exactly. I mean, look, you've got a system in the UK which is dictated by the BSGA. That's how they choose to do things. It may not be conducive to the production of young horses to add value on them. But anyway, the point of this particular part of the talk or discussion is there are some very, very strong arguments now. Are we aware of the daughters and sons of and who their parents are? Yeah. The daughter of Jobs. I know Steve's dead, but he left a few billion behind. Gates, Springsteen, Bloomberg, Abramovich, Onishenko, etc. These are to give you an example, Onishenko earns $3 million a day. So when he wants to go and buy Bellini, as he did last year, he'd earn that money in a day.
I've got his daughter, I can't sell her.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
you just saw them.
First crop of foals, I've got
Right.
Thanks to Derek. You made me buy his mother.
Oh, he's a good stallion. But he's a good stallion. Sorry, not was, is. He's still alive. Yeah, he's a good stallion. Yeah, he's very useful. Anyway, not to discuss the usability of stallions, but as I said, there are some seriously strong arguments as to why you should be breeding well now. We are in definitely a golden period and for breeding, and the breeders are getting their rewards. You've got to try, if it interests you to do that, you've got to put yourself into that system, into that continuum, and find a way to to benefit from that, so that your breeding can actually become less onerous financially, shall I say. That would be my argument. It's what we've done at the Stallion Company. It's why we concentrate hard on the young stallions now. And there will be young stallions who will never make it into our catalogue, not because they're not good enough, but the amount of money we were offered for them, we couldn't earn in breedings in the following 3 or 4 years. And it doesn't mean to say that those who make it into the catalogue weren't good enough either. You know, they are, but they're the ones we really, really want to keep, because they foster the future. That's how Nijhoff and VDL have made their millions over the years, is they've had super young stallions that have sold for 10, 12 years. The kids come through, they find themselves in the world rankings, and that's the way it is. Anyone got any questions so far? It's okay to ask questions. As I said, there's only 1 or 2 that I won't answer, and you don't know what they are. So there we are. Okay, the different sports. Now, I'm not a big dressage man myself, but we were discussing just briefly about eventing horses. The most expensive eventing horse that has been sold since the London Olympics, I believe, would be Tenerez to Harry Mead's crew. They paid €400,000 for him, and cut his balls off. Brilliant. Okay. It was a Jaguar male, and from an Anglo-Arab mother line, it was a super duper horse, world champion. They cut his balls off. Okay. So there we are. That's that. That's just my little thing. You can't take them back on again. But there it is. And prior to that, the most expensive eventing horse was Butts Leon, who was sold to the Tiger, Nina Ligon, who went to the London Games. Unfortunately, dried up on the 7th fence in the show junction. Very, very well. I say unfortunately because actually I own Leon's mum. We are embryoing the hell out of her at the moment. And he was sold for 750,000. Now, as I've said already, €400,000 and 750,000, those are daily events in show jumping. It's a strange thing. Show jumping and dressage, and we can argue about this actually, I'm happy to argue about it. In show jumping and in dressage, the horse is the more important part of the couple. In eventing, it's the rider. And I believe that's why there's very little value placed on the horses, because actually, as Clayton Fredericks once said to me, I could ride most Labradors around a 2-star. And I did challenge him to that, but all the Labradors kept running away. He's Australian, but I don't know. But yeah, it's the economic in the eventing breeding. And as you know, I own Royal Dick, Le Prince des Bois, and Grafenstolz. They sell very well. They've always been, in percentage terms, very, very good investments. But breeding and eventing, if Liz and Vin Jones and Presley Spark can't make money out of it with their setup, it's you're doing it for love.
Why would you want to breed from Chile Morning? Because you're not breeding your man on it.
I can't discuss it.
It's just the same with any eventing style. You can't breed the jockey, and it's the jockey that's
it's exactly that. We can make a talented horse, but in the end, it's so if you're inventing breeding, it's for love. It's for love and passion. Yeah, that's the reality. For the dressage, I had a client from the Midlands call me in January. I'm looking for a dressage horse. I'm well known for finding dressage horses. And okay, what's your budget? He said 60,000. So what do you want? 7-year-old. Well, you should be able to find something for that. 3/4 Germany, not a chance. Nothing at 7 years old, no matter how bad it was, is going to be is in that price bracket. It's extraordinary, and yet actually we've got very good dressage breeding in this country. You know, whether it's Woodlander, whether it's the lass up north, Mount St John, or anywhere else. Even the people who've just got the one really nice dressage mare and they put a really nice dressage stand into it. There's very, very good dressage breeding in this country, and yet look around England, there are enough horses surely. But yeah, so dressage, really, again, we see the money that is pouring into that sport, and obviously, we already discussed show jumping. But as I said, I believe that it's because, it's just my personal belief, I believe it's because there is greater value, and again, you can see at the weekends, Global Champions Tour or any of the other sort of bigger Grand Prix, there can often be a young lady, maybe Greek last name or something like that, who will pop along and, you know, the family trust has paid 5 million for that horse, and she can actually go and win the Grand Prix against Ludger or Ben or Bertram or whatever, and she would be a good rider, but she wouldn't be as good as those other guys. She's got a hell of a horse underneath that. And of course, that's, yeah, when you're selling horses at that kind of time, that's when you go and buy a new farm. That's for very, very sure. My last thing. How are we doing for time, Emily?
8:20. So.
Am I good on time?
Yes.
Oh, okay, good.
Are we into question and answer?
Right, very, very nearly. I've spoken to 3 people from stud books, European stud books, because I want to leave you obviously with a very positive message. 3 stud books, European stud books, including the Oldenburgers, who have all said that during their 10 years of visiting England and branding and grading and so on and so forth, breeding is substantially better in the UK than it was 10 years ago. You know, and I do hear, and I don't mean to drag it off from everyone said it earlier, but someone said, oh, we've got to stop breeding with the crap mares in England. That may well still happen, and I don't think we're ever going to change anything about it, because we can't get one central educational stud book that does everything for us in this country. I think you have more stud books in the UK alone than in the whole of Europe. Extraordinary. And not one of them actually is particularly successful financially, or does 3 or 4 of the major things that any stud book should be doing for its members, including helping them to sell horses, and educating and proper grading and so on and so forth. But there we are. So I just lost my thread there for a second. And every one of these people said that breeding in Britain, by comparison to 10 years ago, is way, way, way ahead. It may be because of people like you, madam, who have got really nice mares and using really good stallions.
Point of giving up.
Oh, that would be a shame. That would be a shame.
Yeah. Emily will tell you, wouldn't you?
Yeah, it's. But would selling a horse, and going back to my points about the economics, but would selling a horse for a lot of money be
I would then put it back in, but I'm running out.
Or money or land?
Yeah. No
Both.
money.
Yeah.
I've lost the daughters from the riding, and the money's running out,
Yeah. Sons. Apparently you centrifuge the seed in the opposite direction, you get sons. It's
Too late.
Too late. There you are. It's interesting to note that, particularly the Oldenburgers, the lady said that she considered that a lot of what she saw in the UK was as good, and in some cases better, than what was being bred in Oldenburg land. Which is interesting. It's not doom and gloom. I'm not entirely sure there's any support for you in anything that a lot of the organisations do, but what you've done actually en masse as British breeders is up the ante. You've used better stallions, there was mine, elite stallions, and else's.
The onset of AI, we've been allowed to.
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. Exactly that. So I hope that, I mean, I could have sat here and told you, well, yeah, use that stallion with that mare. You'll do what you want to do, and you'll choose whichever stallions you want, and you'll breed from the mares that you've got. But I would hope that perhaps you've seen a different angle, a different side to the economics of what is going on here, that actually could motivate you to put a slightly more financial argument or reasoning behind what it is you're doing. If you're there purely for the passion and for the love, then crack on. Absolutely. Still use the best stallions you can on the best mare you can. Because at some point you might find you don't have to sell. But people who are thinking, well, actually, I wouldn't mind breeding commercially. Because as Gordon Gekko famously said in Wall Street, you know, greed cleans, greed refines. It's not actually necessarily a case of greed, but when you put a financial argument or aspect to what you're doing in breeding, it will start to refine your thinking. And if anyone's going to ask me the question, well, you know, how do you choose a stallion? Oh, look, just look in the top 100. If you can't find one out of there, you're not looking hard enough. You know, really, they're easy enough to find. They're not all dead, they're not all infertile. If I can convince even just one person this evening to put a more financial angle on what it is they're doing, and to be, just because you're an amateur doesn't mean you don't have to act professionally. And so if you just find a way to just refine your thinking and to put a profit motive next to it, then I will hopefully have succeeded.
But we don't have the bank in England like you do in
Ah.
France. It says, here's the money, go ahead and help yourself.
That was extremely lucky. When I talked to the French about what I did
Go to
there,
the bank here and
they were like, really? Your bank did that for you? Well, actually, it was your bank as well. Well, how was that? It's like that. But there have to be some questions. I can't believe there can't be any questions.
Can you give us all each a decent mare and learn us a stallion and see what we can do?
Well, actually, interestingly, the one answer to that question is I don't actually have a whole lot of mares. I have Leon's mum
Not enough
and...
for everyone.
No. I just breed 2 mares a year now. I don't have the space. We absolutely don't have the time anymore. So what we now do is we go back into the market to buy 3-year-olds, buy our stallions. So actually, we're putting money back into the breeders' pockets. Because of course we negotiate on price. That's our job. But if our breeders can start to know that, actually...
You've got a market for them when they're 3.
Exactly
That would make me hungry, else people like me would think.
Exactly that. It doesn't mean we're going to be able to buy every year. With my breeders down in the south of France, there's every one of them I go and talk to them about which stallion for this year. But for that mare, that mare, well, of course you're going to buy one of my 3-year-olds this year. In case I'm going to have 84,000 3-year-olds by the end of the year and I'll be bankrupt. But we look to buy back from our own breeders, buy our own stallions, and to produce them.
That promotes your stallions for their offspring?
Yeah, to an extent, yes, it does. Yeah. It's a slightly longer term thing than that, and actually we're hoping that the previous progeny, before we own the stallions, will do that for us. But it's so it wasn't actually a question, but I actually breed now very little. Very little. I do a few partnerships here and there, and I do buy embryos. For example, I bought an embryo last year by Quickstar out of Verdi's full sister. And interestingly, her sister that was born 2 weeks earlier by Conor Walensky was the one that sold at Zanga's Island for 62,000. Now she was a girl, and we are not the Little Filly Company, so she was sold. We made a very good profit on that, thanks to her sister. It sort of seems that I see everything in investment terms. I don't come from a wealthy background or a wealthy family. I have to put bread on the table for my family. And so, of course, we were dreaming there was going to be a Quickstar boy out of that mare. We'll go back this year, we'll put a straw of Casal into her, we'll put a straw of corn into her, and so on, and hopefully we'll get boys. But what I now prefer to do is to go and custom buy embryos, rather than go out to source and buy the very, very best mares, because we just don't have the time and the space at home. We have to concentrate on the stallions. We sold 3,000 breedings last year around the world, and it takes some work. And for us, it's every month of the year. We trade heavily in the Southern Hemisphere. We just haven't got the time anymore, and to have to go and buy 2 new members of staff to look after the foals, etc. No, we prefer to advance our system by 4 years. Buy good 3-year-old bar stallions. Actually, 2 of which are currently in this country, which we're in the process of buying, and that will put 15, 20, 25,000 euros back in the pockets of those breeders.
So you're going to buy my Bellini, Philip?
I don't know Bellini. If you buy one of my stallions, I would certainly be considering it.
No, I know.
There have to be more questions. If there are any questions about me and about what we do in the Stallion Company and how we do it. I mean, if you want to talk about stallions, we'll talk about it afterwards, because I don't want to talk real salesy about it. But some questions. Really? None at all? Market conditions, what's happening here, what's happening there? No?
I've got a question.
Go for it.
The Anglo-European studbot, why don't they use the same grading as the KWPN?
Because they're not the same type of...
No, but obviously there's different ways. There's 100 day, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely.
On the stallions, which
Okay.
obviously is a better option.
But it's a little bit of a thing, okay? A little bit of a thing, these studbots. Extremely controversial subject, and I've been involved in the arguments in that, and Derek's laughing quite a lot about that over the years. The AES has its place.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't 100% agree with the way necessarily it had been run at some point. I don't 100% agree with how it's being run now. However, it has its place. It was originally set up, and I'm sure Derek will agree with me, it was actually originally set up by Vipka, Arno Ivan, Henk Nijhoff Senior, and 1 or 2 others, Kees van Uttelaar, because they had what they believed to be very, very good stallions. but they were not being approved by the KWPN or the major national stud books in each individual country. And so, hang on, this can't be correct, because there are stallions that fall through the net. Not every stallion in the world is ready at 3 years old to go and do a 100-day test. There are a few that come out of the 100-day test that you never see again. I mean, it's tough. And so yeah, the AES was created for that. They have a different ethos, they have a different way of doing things. Actually, as a stud book, it's quite successful, isn't it? Yeah. It is ultimately, whoever's running, whether it was Henk or whether it's now Case and Joris, actually it is quite a successful stud book because they recognise that not every stallion is ready at 3 years old. Canaan wasn't.
Yeah, but also maybe the X-rays didn't come out blinked, and they don't actually